We'll go ahead and get started in a few minutes. Give everybody just a couple more minutes till 7, and then we'll give a couple more minutes for our people who don't like to get here early to jump in. All right, we'll give everybody just a couple more minutes to get in. When I begin the presentation, I'm going to go ahead and lock it so you can't unmute yourself. If you do have a question, you can go ahead and raise your hand or use the chat. We have a couple of our bureau coordinators on as well, Chin Temasingsi and Christy Adair, who will be acting as moderators. And they're very well versed in these subjects and should be able to help answer your questions, as well as our other CERT coordinators as well. And then we'll go ahead and ask for questions at the end of the presentation. All right, thank you everybody for coming tonight. My name is Patrick Botts Forbes. I am the LAFD CERT Central Bureau Coordinator. With us tonight are also Christy Adair, our Valley Bureau Coordinator, and Chin Tamasengsi, our South Bureau Coordinator. Did I get that name right, Chin? Good. He says it's pronounced as it's spelled, but that ending always throws me for a loop. So yeah, I don't believe him. Tonight's presentation is on running an efficient neighborhood staging area. This is something that the CERT class teaches, the Community Emergency Response Team training teaches you that you're going to go to the staging area after earthquake or some other event, an incident, and doesn't go into details about what that means, how it's set up, where these are. So we've drawn up this presentation, written some guides on how to set it up and the steps you're going to take in order for it to run efficiently. We also do drills every month The next drill is this Saturday in Studio City for those who are local to LA in the Valley. We encourage everybody to come out and attend if you can. These are outside for those of you who are concerned. And of course, everyone will be encouraged to wear a mask as our numbers are going up again. But we feel that it's important to have these in-person drills just to continually get the hands-on training and refresh it regularly. Time and time again, as we see earthquakes, blizzards, snowstorms, hurricanes, whatever Mother Nature has to throw at us, we see that it is actually the neighbor helping neighbor, the communities, the neighborhoods that come to the first response right after the earthquake. And the reason for that is quite simply, there are not enough firefighters to handle a major disaster, at least not immediately. In the city of Los Angeles, we have 1,000 firefighters on duty right now for a city of 4 million people. And that's enough to handle the day-to-day emergencies. But when a disaster occurs, everyone will need help to some degree. Now, people who are less worse off than others, they're not going to need as much help. And so what we want are the neighbors who are able to really help out the neighbors that are less fortunate and reduce the chance and need for calling 911, reduce the chance and need for needing EMS or the fire department to come. What we can do in the first few hours after disaster can not only save lives, but really help the community come back. And unfortunately, as we look at some of the disasters around, like Paradise, where the entire town burned down, some of the areas that have been hit by Katrina or other hurricanes, not all of these communities come back. And it's really what you do ahead of time, what you do with your neighbors to prepare, that really determines how well that community, how well you and your neighbors will be able to bounce back after disaster. And what the saying is that there might be a disaster, but by working together, we can prevent it from becoming a catastrophe. I'm kind of blocking. I'll turn off my video here. So what we really want you to do, we want you to become force multipliers for the fire department. Take training. Take the community emergency response team training if you haven't yet. That was really designed by the fire department to get you ready to be able to take care of the minor emergencies so that you don't need to call 911 and clog up the call centers, have to go to the hospital, clog up the emergency rooms. And if you can help your family out, help your neighbors out, you're able to really reduce the load that's put on the EMS system. Fire department will be there, but they're going to be dealing with the people who are worse off than you, hopefully. The neighborhood staging area, as I mentioned, is talked about in the CERT training, but no one defines it. It's not a city. The city is not defining it, and especially in the city of Los Angeles, the fire department are not defining these. It's really up to the community. And that's where we as CERT coordinators are coming in now, trying to find these staging areas, working with our local team leaders to identify good staging areas and help get a setup there. The kit that we are putting in place at these staging areas have everything they need for the first 3 hours of operation. We have maps, forms, we have whiteboard, we have clipboards, we have pens, we have two-way radios, and we have medical resupply. And because this is a fixed location, we can actually define damage assessment routes throughout the area so that when you get there, everything is already documented, step-by-step guided out, and everything is labeled. So there's very little that you have to think about in order to get operation. Understanding that, of course, it is a high stress event. Literally, maybe if it was an earthquake, the ground underneath you had just stop shaking, or maybe is still shaking, or if it's power outage, windstorms, things are falling out of the sky on you. We'd want to reduce the amount that you actually have to think about it. So we we set up the step-by-step guides and label everything, and then we drill regularly so that this becomes muscle memory. The less you have to think about it, the better. Of course, this will be the hub for all the trained responders to go to, and hopefully the trained responders will grab their non-trained neighbors who are able-bodied to act as force multipliers for us and additional hands-on, because we will need those hands. But we also don't want you to think that you have to be young and strong and able-bodied to really participate, because there's a lot of roles at the staging area. Radio operators, scribes that don't need to be able to go out marching through the neighborhood with a heavy pack. There will be roles there that everyone can do. And even if you can't deploy to the staging area from your home, you can do a lot of help and good operating maybe a radio out of your home, or being a scribe with your neighbor who's a radio operator. So we really want everybody to feel like there's a part that you can play in this. When we look for staging areas, we do look for places that are not in the public view, preferably behind a building or in the back of a parking lot, off to the side of a building. And the reason for that is quite simple. If your power's out and everyone's panicking and they see a bunch of people gathered in green vests and helmets that look like they know what they're doing, those people are going to come over and ask for things like, hey, I don't have any water. Do you have water or food? When's the power coming back? My cell phone doesn't work. And really start to bog down the staging area. So we just want it out of the way. We're not trying to hide it. We just don't want it to be in plain view where it's going to attract attention. And these staging areas should be central-ish to the neighborhood that it's serving. That will be served out in each direction as the damage assessment routes go out, as damage assessment teams go out. So it makes more sense to be towards the center, but we're looking for good locations, and we will take an ideal location, even if it's not central to the neighborhood, rather than try and force something that doesn't make sense just because it is in the center. Additionally, we'll need to have a memorandum of understanding with the property owner. We're not going to go someplace that we haven't been approved to be. That's not the intent. So if this is a private residence or a private business or a house of worship, we'll have an agreement in place so that we can be there and train out of there, as well as host that kit there. There are a couple things that keep coming up when people suggest staging areas. Schools are number one. They do seem like ideal locations, but one of the things is that schools will go into lockdown if there are students on campus. And that's one thing that we can't predict when the disaster is going to occur. If it happens during the school day, we don't want to be restricted from accessing the staging area while students are still on campus waiting for their parents to pick them up. We do have a couple staging areas that they're off to the side of the school where it is not directly accessing the campus, and that allows us to have access and agreement with them. But those are few and far between. So I discourage schools, but sometimes they work out. Additionally, fire stations, while those do seem ideal, there's not going to be anyone at the fire station right after an earthquake or another major disaster where the fire department's mobilizing. And so gaining access to the staging area is critical. We do need 24/7 access, and we can't wait for someone to let us in. So fire stations are generally not going to be a good place to do them at. The saying is that the first person at the staging area is the staging manager, or the first person at the incident is the incident commander, until relieved by someone who's a better person in charge. I don't want to say more experienced or better trained. Sometimes you need your better trained people out in the field. So I say more appropriate. We encourage cross training. We encourage everybody to take a crack at being the staging manager, take a crack at being a team leader, practice being a scribe, practice being a radio operator. Know all the roles so that if you get there, and there's a need for you, you can fill in wherever. If you say, I only want to be a radio operator and I can't do anything else, that's going to limit you. And while we probably will need you as a radio operator, um, we might be really lacking a good staging manager. And if you want to be on the radio, that's not the ideal place for you as a staging manager. So we encourage everybody to cross train. When you get there, do what is required of you. But if you specialize in a few things, that's also good. If you're an EMT, we're going to need you in the field. If you're you're a ham radio operator and you have, 13 radios on you at any given time and batteries for days, that's great. There will be a role for you. There will be a need for you. If you can write very neatly, we need documents. We need scribes who can document and who other people can read their handwriting. So choose what you like to do, but also try and learn the other roles as well. The reason why we don't say incident commander and CERT anymore is because it's going to be very rare that we will ever be the incident commander. CERT rolls into other agencies. In LA City, we're part of the LA Fire Department. In other parts of the country, CERT is part of their emergency management department, part of the sheriff's. So there will always be a professional incident commander there. I can't think of a reason why CERT would ever be incident commander, but I'm not saying that will never happen. But we don't use that term anymore in the training. We might be an operations chief. That might be something. But CERT deploys out of staging areas, CERT staging areas. So the person in charge of a staging area is a staging manager. The staging manager in ICS puts together teams for the incident commander or operations branch, but you can have multiple roles. So when a staging area is set up, you're generally going to be isolated. You're going to be focusing on just your area right then and there. You're not tied into the larger fire department response or emergency management department response. So your position as staging manager will probably not change, but if you come up as incident commander, you won't be incident commander for long. So what we say is the staging manager is in charge of the staging area. You're acting as a dual role. You're acting as the role of incident commander or operations chief until you link up with the larger group. And then you'll probably remain as staging manager. So for those of us not familiar with incident command, it just makes more sense to title you as staging manager and not change your title mid-incident. I hope that makes sense. We've put together step-by-step guides and a lot of documents out there, and we put them up at the website, documents.ntp-la.org. I've also just recently uploaded the CERT forms there as well. We've numbered them, so it makes sense you read 1, 2, 3, and there will be sub numbers as well. So for example, there's a couple scripts for the staging manager to read when they're deploying out teams, one for the damage assessment team, one for the incident response team, and those are labeled there. And the reason we do this is these guides are designed to be no more than 4 pages. So they should be very easy reads. We try and make it available to and accessible to everybody, regardless of the training level that you have. So if you've never taken a CERT class, this is your first introduction to disaster preparedness and response, you should be able to read these guides and understand them. Our step-by-step guide focuses on a 10-step guideline, and we'll go over each of these points in more depth. But step 1 is always going to be take care of yourself and your loved ones first. This is critical. If you, and I'll read the points and then I'll expand upon them in the next slides. So step 1, always take care of yourself and your loved ones first. Step 2, monitor your local neighborhood, or if you don't have a local channel, if you have a larger battalion or community channel, monitor that. If you don't have one yet, talk to your battalion coordinators, talk to your neighborhood team leaders, about getting a channel so that you're all on the same communications platform, be it family radio service radios or I'm explaining a little bit again. Just need to read off these points and then I'll expand. Step 3, wear long pants and closed-toed shoes and PPE. Step 4, report to your closest neighborhood staging area. Step 5, the first person at the staging area becomes staging manager. Step 6, the next 3 people who arrive at the staging area will make up the first damage assessment team. Step 7, subsequent people will either be damage assessment teams or incident response teams based upon the reports that are being radioed in. Step 8, as the response grows, hold back additional scribes and radio operators to augment the staging area. Step 9, response teams should have separate communications for within the team, that's intra-team or tactical, and strategic, that's communicating back to the staging area. And then step 10, communicate with other staging areas and establish communication with the fire department or whoever agency you are responding with. So as I started to expand upon, take care of yourself first. Only when yourself and your family are safe, then consider helping your neighbors. And the reason for this is simple. If you're worried about your family, your house collapsed, you have your loved ones are injured, you're not going to be an efficient and effective responder helping your neighbors while you're thinking about your loved ones at home. So take care of them first. If they're safe, if your home is intact, then consider helping your neighbors out. Step 2, as I mentioned, that neighborhood or battalion level radio channel. Make sure that you can talk to your neighbors, because the first thing you're going to do right after that earthquake is turn on your radio and listen. And if you hear people checking in and they're talking about injuries, damage to their home, you know something bad happened. But if everyone's checking in and it's no damage, no injuries, this wasn't a big incident. When you get a chance, you've checked in your family, you've checked in your home, then you check in as well. Give your status. Sometimes you'll be the first one checking in, and then you'll hear other people check in as well, because everybody's a little radio shy. They don't want to be the first one on. Step 3, dress correctly. Long pants, because you're going to be brushing up against brush or debris stuff. You want to make sure that you're protected from whatever's out there. Closed-toed shoes are a must. I know there's some people who they love to be in sandals or barefoot. You're going to step on things, you're going to brush up the things and get injured. So absolutely long pants and closed-toed shoes. I'm sorry when we hit summer, especially for the people in the valley, but we got to take care of ourselves. We don't want to bring a victim to the incident. Additionally, if you've got a CERT vest or high visibility vest, helmet, just a bump cap, because things might be falling, you might be bumping into things, and you want to protect your head. Goggles, things will be in the air, and you don't want to get your eyes, get stuff in your eyes. N95 masks, I know we're all familiar with these. These protect you from debris in the air, breathing that in. And then gloves. You're going to be lifting stuff, you're going to be carrying stuff, things will be hot. I do recommend leather gloves for the vegans here. I apologize, but synthetic material tends to melt. And so leather is highly recommended. It's going to be more durable and be able to touch hot stuff without melting onto you, which would be a very painful experience. We are still in a pandemic. I hope most of us understand that. Unfortunately, the numbers are going up. So PPE, distance, if there's an earthquake, there's going to be dust and debris in the air. When we drill, if we drill for an earthquake, we should be wearing N95 masks, because we want to get experience wearing them and used to gearing up properly. If you will work as you train, and if you don't train properly, you don't train with PPE, then you're not familiar with how to put it on. It's not comfortable. So I recommend that you wear the PPE you would wear during the disaster that you're practicing for. It happens to line up with pandemic precautions, so that's great. It protects us in all kinds of ways. Christy, on Saturday, make sure that I give that announcement because we forgot to do that in Venice.
You mean about
Uh,
the PPE?
yes, wearing the N95 masks and also the high vis vests. We forgot and I'll have them with me, but we forgot those in Venice, and that was my
Yes.
mistake.
I would suggest one way to get used to PPE is if you're doing your gardening or you're cleaning out your garage, anytime you're outside, put on your goggles, put on your PPE, put on your helmet. Your neighbors will wonder what you're doing, but it's a really good way to get used to this uncomfortable stuff on your head, in your face.
That's a great idea, Christy. Thanks. Step 4. Um, when you determine the need to go to the staging area, and it will be pretty obvious as people check in, they're going to be talking about damage and injuries. It's going to be pretty clear that this was a major incident and that something more is going to need to be done. So at some point, you're going to report the staging area. Someone, hopefully one of your team leaders, will say that they'll radio saying that they're going to go to the staging area and set it up. If you decide you're going to deploy, make sure you radio and let people know that you're going. You don't want to get injured on the way there and nobody even knows that you were on your way. They don't know to expect you. They don't know to look for you, and something happens to you on the way over there. If you have other trained neighbors, or if you have neighbors that are able-bodied that you can drag along with you, deploy in pairs, deploy in teams. Most injuries after an earthquake occur during the earthquake and then a few minutes after the earthquake. So that's when you're going to be deploying out. That's when you need to be extra cautious. As you're going to the staging area, observe and report any incidents on your way in. Understanding that someone might not be documenting them, so you should be documenting them as well. But as you report in over the radio these incidents, it gives people a bigger picture, a complete picture of what's going on, or a more complete picture. It builds their situational awareness. And if you don't have the CERT forms, regular paper, it's called Form 1. It's a blank sheet of paper. You can document pretty much on anything. First person to the staging area, as I mentioned, becomes the staging manager. Congratulations, you're in charge until you find someone who's better suited to be in charge than you, and you can pass off that duty. On Saturday's drill, we're going to be exercising that exactly. We have someone who, the person in charge should be CERT trained. And that's because not necessarily that they don't have people who are untrained through CERT are not necessarily unskilled and untrained, but if we've all gone through the training and the people in charge have gone through the training, we kind of know what to expect of our responders. And people who come in with a lot of professional experience, being professional responders, having taken ICS courses and worked at EOCs, they might not know the expectations of what to expect from the neighborhood response. So we have a very experienced person who's going to be there right at the very beginning on Saturday, but because he has not taken the CERT training yet, we're going to practice him finding a more suitable person who's CERT trained to take over as staging manager. And these are the kinds of things we're going to be doing at these drills, to get you used to the techniques and skills that you should be doing, and the flow and the practices that should happen during the operation. When you get to the staging area, if you're the first person there, radio. Let everybody know on your community channel or your neighborhood channel that you've arrived, that the staging area is safe. The concern is always that the staging area is going to be a giant sinkhole when you get there. The reality is most buildings won't collapse. There will be some damage. Sometimes power lines will go down. But in general, we can't find the perfect place with no hazards. So when you get there, you're going to assess the area, make sure it is safe. make sure that there's no power lines sitting on top of the staging area kit, and then let everybody know that it is safe. If it is not safe, you're also going to let them know this. You get there, our primary staging area is a giant sinkhole, and there's water squirting out from the fire hydrant that was next to it. We're going to go to the backup staging area, and everyone should go there. Second thing you're going to do is you're going to pull out Form 2. This is the personnel sign-in form. Put it on a clipboard if it's not already set up on a clipboard, and you're going to sign in first. You're the first person there. You sign in first. As people arrive, you're going to sign them in as well until you can get a scribe to take this over for you. And we strongly recommend that you actually do, or the scribe that you assign this to does the sign-in form. Don't give it to the people as they show up, because you need to read their handwriting, and they need to rate themselves on their skill level. And you want to make sure that this is documented correctly, because some people will look at a form and they will write down gibberish, or they will write down something that doesn't make any sense. Use your judgment. If someone is saying there are 5s and everything, and you start asking them questions and start talking to them, and it is very clear that they do not know what they're talking about, use your judgment on whether or not this person should be a team leader that is going to be in charge of the safety of other people. That's about all I'm going to say about that. Then you're going to start listening to the radio, and as people report in incidents, you're going to start documenting them down on the incident response or the rapid needs assessment form. As people arrive, assess them. As I said, they're going to rate themselves. You're going to document, have a slight conversation with them, assess them physically. If they do not look like they are physically fit, there's roles at the staging area that they can take over. If somebody shows up in a wheelchair, they might be able to carry equipment with the team out there. Use your judgment and figure out the best role for them. If someone is on crutches, or doesn't look like they can carry a heavy bag for more than 150 feet, sending out someone who's not physically capable puts not only that person at risk, but it puts the team at risk. So assess everybody and use your better judgment. The first 3 able-bodied people who arrive at the staging area, or rather the next 3 people after you, will be the first damage assessment team. It's critical to get people out in the field and start understanding the incident. Find out how bad this is. You've heard things on the radio, maybe. You've maybe seen things, but you have no idea how bad it is until people start going and actually doing the damage assessment. So if you can get people out fast, do so. First, damage assessment team is going to be Team Alpha. It will consist of 3 people, a team leader, a radio operator, and a scribe. And each of these roles is critical. People think that the scribe is not an important role. I would argue that the scribe is actually the most important role. If it's not written, if it isn't documented, it didn't happen. And the scribe on a team will keep track of what's going on, the incidents that they've encountered. They will keep track of their assignments. They will keep track of a lot of information that the team leader and the radio operator will find essential to being able to operate effectively. So for those of you who think that all you can do is write neatly and that you can't lift heavy stuff, you're going to be valuable. You're going to be extremely valuable to us. So, and I encourage everybody to try and be a scribe. I would make a horrible scribe because I can't even read my own handwriting half the time. So, but secondary to that, everyone else should be able to cross-train as the scribe. Sometimes you might be very experienced and you get there and you have extremely experienced people who are better skilled at everything than you are. That's not to say that you're not skilled, but you're going to find the role that is required of you, and being the scribe should not be considered a downgrade for anybody. I do recommend that all team leaders should be CERT trained. You're going to work with what you have. If you have 5 people showing up at the staging area, none of them are CERT trained, you're not going to be happy, perhaps, but hopefully you have someone who is disaster skilled. They can take direction, they can follow the step-by-step guides, and they can become an effective team leader. But you're gonna do what you can do with the resources that you have. But we do encourage everybody to take the training, and hopefully you'll have a lot of CERT trained people showing up at your staging area.
Hey, Patrick.
Yes, Christy.
It's Christy. I would like to mention something about the scribe. When I was assigning roles in CERT drills and I said, you're going to be the scribe, the look of disappointment on someone's face was palpable. But if you look at the scribe position as being like the assistant leader, because you are working with the team leader, learning how they make decisions, learning how they prioritize, learning how they're a leader, and you're writing all of that down, and you're really the right hand. So if you want to be in a leadership position, but you're not quite ready to be a team leader, it's really a good place to be, is to be the scribe, because you really get to see the bigger perspective instead of the micro movements that the search and rescue teams do. So please consider being a scribe if you want to be a team leader, because it's a really important role.
Absolutely. And I'll second that as well. At our Venice drill last month, we had a very skilled scribe in terms of his abilities, his capabilities. And no offense to the staging manager, but I would argue that the scribe would have been a better staging manager. But because he was such a great, experienced person put in the scribe role, the two of them worked amazingly well together, and they were very effective. The staging manager has roles that big picture, they're trying to track everything, they're trying to do everything. Having this experienced person being the scribe meant that he could be trusted with prioritizing incidents and pre-allocating things, and then bring it up to the staging manager. All right, I've worked on this. This is what I recommend. And it took a lot of that off of the staging manager's shoulders. And this person who did this was the scribe. So it was almost a deputy. We're breaking these down to 3 positions: team leader, radio operator, and scribe. ICS is immense. The incident command system is immense. It is very complicated. There's people who can do doctorates on the subject of incident command system. Most of us don't have that experience. So we're trying to make this as simple as possible. 3 roles: team leader, radio operator, scribe. The team leader is the staging manager. The team leader on a team is the team leader. The other 2 roles, they're self-explanatory, but don't think all you're doing as the scribe is writing things down. You are an essential, I would actually argue the scribes are the most critical role in this system, because your ability to organize data, your ability to prioritize, your ability to see what you have and document, and then bring it to the person who is the team leader, or bring it to the radio operator to communicate, is going to make or break this entire system. The radio operator is, I'm sorry, let me take a step back. The team leader maintains situational awareness and safety of the team members. Their job is to make sure everybody gets home safely. That is their primary goal. The team leader should never be running into the fray, going hands-on. If you need to do medical, you need to put your hands on and bandage someone, or you need to do search and rescue and go into a building, grab the fire extinguisher, put fires out, or you need to hold the radio at all times and be talking on the radio. Team leader is not the position for you. And this is why I say the scribe is actually more important than the team leader, because the team leader has one job: make sure everybody makes it home safely. Everyone else is doing the work, doing the job, communicating, documenting, figuring out what needs to go where. The radio operator is proactively communicating. If you're on a damage assessment team or an incident response team, your job is to talk to staging. Let staging know what's going on. Your scribe is going to be critical. They're your pair, they're your buddy. The scribe, if you have an excellent scribe with you, they understand what your job as a radio operator is. They know the 5 Ws. You're going to pick up the radio and start to talk. They're going to flip their clipboard around and show you that they've already bullet pointed exactly what you need to say, and you read it off their clipboard. And that is an amazing duo when that works. Like I said, the scribe is going to make or break the team. The teams will be named using NATO alphabet. We bounced back and forth on this, but I think it just makes sense to make it easy. Instead of trying to figure out what your team names are, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and do it sequentially. The first 4 teams should be damage assessment teams, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. The first incident response team starts at Echo. So if your second team, you're sending out an instant response team, don't name them Bravo. Just keep it simple. First 4 are damage assessment teams, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. And then from there, the rest of the NATO alphabet are going to be instant response teams, starting with Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, Hotel. We're trying to template this so that you don't have to think about it, and it's just going to work when you get there. And you can practice this. You can practice this at the Valley, in the harbor, wherever we do the drills, it's going to be the same. Before the team goes out, make sure you test your radio communications. Go out 20 feet, do a radio check. Staging, this is Alpha team, doing a radio test. And staging should come back. Alpha team, you're loud and clear. Or roger that, you're good to go. I'll get to the 5 Ws in a second. I do have a slide. The teams do need clear direction on where they're going to go. We will plan, once we have the staging area, we'll plan predefined damage assessment routes. We don't want you to think about what you have to do when you get there. We want to give you a map and say, this is the route. We've already tested this during the drills. This is where you're going to go as Alpha team. This is where you're going to go as Bravo, Charlie, Delta. And that map is on the main board. That map is on, and you have, as the team, you have that focused map of exactly where you're going to go. And staging knows where you should be at any time on that map, so that they don't have to figure out, okay, they said they're where, and where is that on the map? Also, if you start reporting in locations that don't make sense, hopefully that's easy to figure out that you're off the map. That's if you have radios. If you don't have radios, and you're going to have to use runners to do your damage assessment and communicate back with staging, you're going to be limited to probably a couple of blocks. And then at that point, you're doing instant response and damage assessment at the same time. You're going to do what you can, and you're going to be very limited. Radios make, they're a massive force multiplier. You can talk for blocks with a radio. You can talk for upwards of a mile with a radio. With a runner, that would take, at best, probably 15 minutes to run a mile. So now you might have an Olympic grade athlete on your team, but we hope that everybody has radios. As we build out these staging area kits, we will provide radios in them, and then we'll practice and train on the radios. I'll mention the 5 Ws shortly, but the radio, when you radio in an incident, you want to radio in when you discover an incident, when you're changing direction, or if you haven't radioed within the last 15 minutes, you want to check in with staging and just let them know where you are, and stay in communication. And also find out if you have a communications problem. Maybe you haven't talked to staging because you're not hearing anything. Maybe staging isn't hearing you. So that communication should sound something like this. Staging, this is Alpha team. You're going to wait for staging to acknowledge. Staging is going to say, Alpha team, go ahead. And you're going to come back again with the full staging. This is Alpha team. We're turning north on Davenport, turning north from Davenport onto Havenhurst. That lets them update their map. And then they're going to confirm, Roger Alpha, you are turning north from Davenport onto Havenhurst. You want that acknowledgement so that everyone is confirmed exactly what was said. Radio communication is difficult if you don't do it regularly. If you're very efficient, you're very experienced on the radio, this is how that communication should sound for a different instance. Staging, Bravo team, corner of Main and Valley, car into tree, possible 2 or 3 survivors, assessing, need an incident number. Short, concise, and to the point. You're letting staging know that you're reaching them, who you are, where you are, what you have, and what you need. And that brings us to the 5 W's. If you practice these 5 W's, you'll be very effective at communicating. First W, who are you calling? People on the radio, they listen for their call sign. If you're at staging, you're listening for someone calling for staging. If you're on Alpha team, you're listening for someone calling Alpha team. There will be other people on the radio. And while you're listening to the radio, you may not perk up right away as to what's going on until somebody calls your call sign. So the first thing out of your mouth should be who you're calling. Staging, followed by who you are. Let staging know who is talking to them. This is Alpha team. Now you're going to wait for acknowledgement. Staging might be busy. Staging might not have a good read on your communication. Staging might be talking to someone else. Wait for that acknowledgement. If you don't hear the acknowledgement, try again. Staging, this is Alpha team. You should hear Alpha team, go for staging, or something similar. Now you're going to repeat the entire process again, 1 through 5. Staging, this is Alpha team. Step 3, where are you? You're going to give them the location. If your radio drops dead at that point, at least they know where you are. Staging, this is Alpha team. We're at the corner of Main and Valley. Intersections are good because they're easier to find on a map. More specific addresses are great because you can pinpoint it, but the intersections, but a fixed location and address, 221 North Valley, might be harder to find for someone who's not intimately familiar with the neighborhood than an intersection. So if you're going to give an address, also give the nearest intersection as well. We're at 221 North Valley. Closest intersection is Main and Valley. That just makes it easier to find on the map. What do you have? You're going to give them, say, I've got a car into tree, or I've got a trip and fall. Do not give too much information here. Keep it short, concise, and to the point. If staging needs to know more information, they will ask for it. But get on the radio, get off the radio as quickly as possible. Now, don't give them no information, but give them just the concise information. And this takes practice. This is also where having a scribe who is an experienced radio operator will benefit you a lot as well, because they'll hopefully have already figured out what they need to say. And if you don't have a scribe, or if you don't have a scribe that is on the ball, write down what you're going to say before you say it. Write down the 5 W's. Just bullet point it. Staging, Alpha team, 221 North Valley, near Valley and Main Street, 2-car head-on collision, 2 victims, 1 immediate, 1 delayed. Need incident number, or need incident response team. And you can just read it off bullet point, bullet point by bullet point.
Hey, Patrick, it's Christy.
Yeah, Christy.
I like your idea of writing down what you're going to say before you say it for 2 reasons. One, it helps you be more succinct if you know what you're going to say and you see it written down. Also, what happens with radio communications is sometimes you can't get through to who you want to speak to. So there might be other radio traffic, and you might, or maybe they don't hear you, or they might say, Bravo team stand by. And it might be a while before you get to communicate that message. So if you have it written down and you can communicate it later, like if you have to wait 5 minutes, you don't want to forget it. So make sure that if you have an important communication or update for staging manager, make sure that it is written down with the scribe and there's a time next to it, because you may not always be able to relay your message as quickly as you'd like to.
Absolutely. And during these drills, we experience this as the teams get further out. they have communication problems. And so absolutely, that's a great idea. Not having to remember things is important. The damage assessment teams, their duty is to report the incident, document it, triage and stabilize it, and then move on. If you get stuck at an incident, you'll never complete the damage assessment. If you get stuck at the first incident, you won't know what's worse beyond. So report it, document it. You want to stabilize it. So if someone's bleeding out, and you can stop the bleeding, and give them time for the incident response team to get there, do so. But if someone, scraped their knee and they, want to talk for 20 minutes about why the earth shook, you need to move on. Report it in, get going. When you communicate an incident, it's going to sound something like this. Staging, this is Delta. Delta, go ahead. Staging, this is Delta at the intersection of Bob Hope and Greenwood. We have a 3-car collision. Please provide an incident number. The incident number is key because you'll constantly refer back to it instead of staging, this is Delta. We're still at Bob Hope and Greenwood with a 3-car collision. We're providing an update on that. Staging from Delta regarding incident number 3. And then you go on. And staging already knows what incident number 3 is. They don't need to figure out, okay, is Greenwood and Bob Hope, and oh yeah, looking back in my notes, I've got a 3-car collision. Staging should come back. Delta from staging, incident number is 3. Please report details when you have them. Always use plain English when you're talking in the radio. Here's another example here. This is after you've done the assessment, you've gotten the incident number. Staging, this is Delta, reporting on incident number 3. You wait for acknowledgement. Delta, this is staging, go ahead. With incident update on incident number 3. Staging, this is Delta, regarding incident number 3. We have 3 vehicles, 2 head-on, 1 T-bone in the middle of the intersection of Bob Hope and Greenwood. 7 victims total. 2 immediate, 3 delayed, and 2 walking wounded. Immediate number 1 is a 15-year-old female with femoral bleed. We've applied a tourniquet and treating for shock. Perfusion is 5 seconds. Immediate number 2 is a 65-year-old male with possible chest injury and is breathing rapidly. You notice the pace I'm giving. I'm expecting someone's writing this down. So I'm not speaking too fast. I'm not speaking too slowly. And I'm pausing at the key points so that person, the scribe on the other end, has the chance to write down that relevant piece of information. Short, concise, and to the point. After your first damage assessment team has gotten out there, the next 3 people should be a second damage assessment team. Should. This is where you're going to be figuring this out. If you're getting bombarded with reports from the first damage assessment team and you need to get an incident response team out there, that's going to be up to you. If you're already overwhelmed at staging because you're the only one there at this point and you need to augment your staging area with a scribe and radio operator, that's critical too. So you're going to determine the needs as people come in. What does the staging area need at this exact point? What do I need to complete this mission and help the most or the greatest number of people do the greatest good for the greatest number of people in the shortest amount of time? So while we're templating this and they're saying what you should do, it is a template, it is a guideline that you're going to have to adapt on the fly in the field. The second damage assessment team will be Bravo. They should go in the opposite direction of Alpha. You don't need to have 2 teams going in the same direction, but it's also going to be based on your topology and your map out there. You want to get a big picture. You want to understand what's going on out there, and having 2 teams in opposite directions is more effective than generally having 2 in the same direction that may run into each other. After you get the second team out there, Again, you're going to determine the needs. Do I need to get a third damage assessment team out? We have 4 damage assessment routes that need to be completed. If we don't have a lot of incidents getting reported in, get the damage assessment done. But if you're getting bombarded with call after call after call and you need to help people, then start thinking about that incident response team. If you can complete the damage assessment team, the damage assessment routes, they'll recycle in as incident response. So don't think that your damage assessment people will come back and then you're going to be waiting for more people to show up to be incident response. However, when we did a drill and we tried to do that, people got back and they're like, I feel like I need to rest and not go back out again. But hopefully that was a drill, and realizing that, they've literally just seen people who need help. They won't be that kind of, I'll wait for someone else to do this. Take care of your people. As staging manager, it is your job to make sure everyone gets home safe. It is your job to make sure that people are safe to go out. If you have someone who's over anxious and they want to get back out there and they look like they're sweating and they're breathing hard and it does not look like they are safe to go back out, have them rest. Hopefully they've got water. Hopefully they've got food or snacks to replenish before they go back out again. Make sure that it is safe for them to do so. Incident response teams are going to be larger than damage assessment teams. A damage assessment team should be 3 people: radio operator, scribe, and the team leader. The incident response team is going to build upon that same format. You're going to have that dedicated radio operator, dedicated scribe. Everyone should be doing one job. You're going to have that team leader keep them safe, and then you're going to add on in responder pairs. And these are the people who are going to go hands-on. If you have medically trained people, it makes sense to put your medically trained people into a responder pair. I will also say that if you have someone who's very experienced, say they're an EMT, they might be better as a team leader, understanding that they will be hands-off because they can provide guidance to the maybe just first aid, CPR, AED trained first responders, responder pairs, because they can provide guidance. If I'm an EMT, I'm helping one person. If I'm a team leader, I'm also an EMT. I can help my people help multiple people. But be very clear, the team leader cannot go hands-on. And I can't be an EMT and a team leader at the same time. I need to be one or the other. And you have some people who want to be in charge. They want to be a team leader, but as soon as they get there, they're going to dive in heads first and hands first, and you no longer have a team leader on that team. If that happens to you and you see this happening on your team, someone needs to step up and take over team leader and make sure everybody's safe. Because if you're hands-on someone, you're tunnel visioned. You're focusing on the one person you're helping, and you're not seeing that Mack truck barreling down on the team. Same thing, if you're the scribe, you're focusing on documenting and making sure you're tracking everything. If you're the radio operator, you're focused on communicating and making sure that you're keeping the staging area updated. Team leader should not, they'll have a clipboard, but that shouldn't be, they're not taking copious amounts of notes. They should not have the radio unless things have gone wrong and they need to take the radio. As the response grows, you're going to need to augment your staging area. The staging manager will do everything at the very beginning. They will be the scribe and the radio operators. They're signing people in. They're going to be communicating with staging, with the teams out there. They're going to be documenting incidents on the board. They can't do this for long. If you have more than 2 teams out there, you need to augment the staging area with additional scribes and radio operators. I would get someone to take over sign-in for me first. I can be on the radio and talking to the teams and writing on the board, tracking them. I need someone to focus on signing in the people as they come in, and then get my teams ready to send out. Next thing I would do is hand off the radio. So if we have someone who's a good radio operator, and that's the third role I would fill after the scribe. and then give them the radio. We've seen this time and time again. The staging manager does not want to give up the radio, but you can only do one job well. And if I'm tracking my teams and prioritizing incidents, I can't also be talking on the radio at the same time with them. I need to hand that off and trust the people I put into that position. Hopefully they are capable. This is why we're doing the drills monthly. We need to get our skills up. We need to be able to be competent when this happens. Otherwise, this is not going to end well for any of us. Response, they're going to be, there's two categories of people operating at the staging area. Staffing, that's documenting people as they come in and documenting what teams they're assigned to. And then the people who are handling the response side of things. So they're the ones who are communicating with the teams. They're the ones tracking incidents on the map. They're the ones who are tracking the team assignments and locations and figuring out where they're going to go next. If you know that an incident response team is finishing up, you should already know which incident they're going to go to next. You shouldn't be waiting, be caught off guard that they've just completed their incident and now they're waiting around to figure out where you need to send them next. There's additional roles that we need to get to eventually. The staging area should be out of the public eye. We don't want the general public coming here. And if you encounter people and they're asking for help, you should have a public gathering area or family reunification area that is either predetermined or just makes sense. That's where you send these people to. But we need to get somebody over there to be that relay point, because if they're there and they have valuable information for us, and people show up at the public gathering area or the family reunification, they saw fire going on as they came up, we don't have anybody there to relay that information to us. That's lost information. So when you can, get a radio operator and scribe, again, they should be a pair. The radio operator and scribe should stick together. Get them over to that public gathering area, and so they can start relaying information in. Additionally, these public gathering areas are going to be where the city will make announcements. As the disaster continues on a couple days, people are not just going to hang out at the public gathering area 24/7. But what will happen is the city will start giving information and announcements on a regular basis. They should be encouraged to come back when you find out what the schedule is of the announcements and you're tied into that system. Encourage people to come back to the gathering area. Say it's going to be at 9 o'clock in the morning and 9 o'clock at night. Well, probably 9 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock at night. That's when they should come back just to get the announcements and check in on them, make sure they're okay, make sure that if they need anything, you can relay this up, because at that point we should be tied into the city response. And we're a force multiplier for the fire department, for EMD. So as we get tied into these systems, we can provide information upwards. I mentioned that there should be strategic and tactical communications. Everyone should have a family radio service radio. Get one. But at the same time, the staging areas will have their own radios that are tested and practiced on, and that everyone should be familiar with. Those radios will be issued to the teams, and those radios should be what are used to communicate. Because we're going to drill on this regularly, we know the range of these radios. If you bring a $5 or $10 FRS radio, it's not going to work very well. If you bring a $100 FRS radio, it will probably work a lot better. But we can't have two different kinds of bad and good radio communication out there. So that's why we standardize on the radios that we have in the kits, so that we know they work and we're not relying on the volunteers bringing their own radios. Now, those FRS radios, on the other hand, are great for communicating within the team. A team of 7 can be broken up. If you're dispatched to a incident and you have 2 responder pairs with you, and someone runs up to your team and says, help, 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 my mother fell off the ladder, you can break up a pair using FRS radio to communicate and send them off while you continue on to the incident. Let staging know that this has happened. Staging, this is echo. we're on our way to incident number 7. We had someone run up asking for help. We're going to break off a responder pair. They're going to be Echo 2. We're going to maintain as Echo 1, and they're going to go check on this while Echo 1 continues on to the main incident. Now you can talk to Echo 2 using the FRS radios, because hopefully they're going to be close enough that the FRS radios are going to work. This one is a little controversial. In general, we say that everyone should not be using PL tones. And these private line tones, they can complicate things, because if you're on one PL tone and the person you're trying to talk to is on a different PL tone, you will not talk to each other. However, if you are not using PL tones, you will hear a lot of noise, you will hear a lot of static, you will hear other conversations that aren't relevant to us. So that becomes distracting, and people will turn the radio volume down to avoid hearing that. At which point you don't have a radio, you have a paperweight. Practice with your radios so you know what you're doing. Practice at the drills, turning on and off the PL tones. What I recommend is that we have a standard PL tone. It's going to match your channel. So if you happen to be on channel 7, your PL tone will be on 7. If you're on channel 2, your PL tone will be 2. If you're on channel 11, you're going to have a PL tone of 11. It just eliminates the need to think about it. If you turn on a PL tone, you're going to be on the same PL tone that your channel is on. Just keep it simple. The end goal is to have a CERT liaison team up at the fire department response. Hopefully we'll have someone, a couple people who are assigned to do that. Hopefully we know where that command post is, and every battalion is going to have it differently. But when we get people up there and they're on our communication system, they're going to be reaching out to the staging areas and checking in with them. And now we can communicate up to the fire department. We have boots on the ground. This is where we become the force multipliers for the fire department. Is we can say, okay, we have this number of incidents. This is where we need help from the fire department. This is what we have, and this is what we need. The fire department may not even know about these incidents yet, especially if cell phones are down, 911 is busy. The fire department is going to be blind, and they're going to know what they know. And if we can provide that additional eyes and ears and boots on the ground, this is where we become very valuable to the fire department. Additionally, you might find out that your particular neighborhood is not heavily damaged. You don't have a lot of incidents. Next neighborhood on the other hand, they are a total train wreck over there. And maybe it's because the train literally flew off the tracks and took out some homes on the way. Just the way earthquakes work, there's waves, and so some places will be more heavily damaged than others. This liaison team will be coordinating with the different staging areas and may say, okay, we need to move some boots on the ground from one staging area to another. Of course, that's volunteer. You're never going to be, told you have to leave your area to go somewhere else. It's if you want to. So what's next? This Saturday is going to be our monthly pop-up drill. It's going to take place in Studio City. Last month we had it in Venice. The month before that it was in Del Rey. The month before that was in El Sereno. And before that was in, I think it was Venice. Anyway, we're rotating around the city. So this will be our first drill in the Valley. I know Christy is really looking forward to this. I'm really looking forward to getting this going in the Valley. We have great support from Studio City Neighborhood Council on this. And this will be an incident response drill. We're going to set up the staging area. We're going to go through the motions of signing people in, transferring command over, organizing and tracking the teams. Rather, we know what the incidents are, and we have to prioritize where we need to send the teams, send them out, track them as they're going out, track them as they respond in, as they work. We will have facilitators with each of the teams. The facilitator will provide a story. They know what the incident is. They're going to walk you through step by step what you see, um, ask you what you're thinking. Make sure you're being safe about it. Make sure you're thinking the big picture as well as, the things I need to be worried about as I'm coming up on this incident. And then they'll tell you what you're seeing, and you're going to, as the team, figure out what you're going to do to respond to this, and they'll provide immediate feedback. If you have someone who's bleeding out and you start applying direct pressure, well, maybe that'll stop the bleeding, maybe it won't. And if it doesn't, what are you going to do next about this? And they're going to work with you so that you can get the experience in real time of what it would actually be to play out an incident. I really hate those drills where you walk up and there's a sign that says house is on fire, 3 immediate victims in the front yard. Okay, what am I going to do about this? I'm going to treat the victims and then move on. Mission accomplished. I didn't learn anything from this. But with that facilitator there, they're going to provide you that immediate feedback. And if your team leader decides to go off the rails and say, we're going to run into the burning building to save people who are screaming in there, because we're sadistic like that, and there will probably be people screaming inside the burning building, because what happens if you encounter that? We're going to play on the gray areas. We want you to think about this. We're not going to have simple, easy incidents that don't teach you anything. We're going to challenge you. And so, what do you do? Someone screaming for help inside the burning building. Is it safe to enter? I can't tell you that until I'm there. The teaching says no. But what happens if it's your home and someone's screaming in there? You're probably going to be running into the burning building. But there's ways to do things safely. And this is what we want to explore in the gray areas. Think about it and make sure that you learn something. If you're going to make a mistake, make sure you make the mistake during the drill and you learn from that mistake. And so when you actually encounter this real life incident, you don't get people killed. This month is busy. The immediate day after this drill is a radio drill and mapping exercise in the West Side Village. The following Saturday is we started this thing, we're calling it hands-on for newbies. We want to be very clear, because people say, oh, I've not come to a drill before, I've just completed the CERT training. Is the drill for me? Hands-on for newbies. This is for you if you're a newbie. We're going to be focusing on bandaging and wound care. And going back to the drill, yes, it is for you. If you've never gone to a drill before, this drill is for you. If you've gone to a dozen drills before, this drill is for you. This is for everybody. Not only because you're going to get something out of it, but also because if you are not even CERT trained, you're a convergent volunteer. You're that person that your neighbor said, hey, we need to do some good, come with me. And you have no idea what they're dragging you into. You're going to be put on a team, and that team needs to know how to work with you, how you can be that force multiplier, but they need to keep you safe and they need to give you direction, because you're an extra set of hands, but we don't want you getting hurt. The link for the Eventbrite for the Studio City drill is on this page. Additionally, we have 3 links. Calendar.ntp-la.org is a Google Calendar that you can add to your Outlook or Windows Mail or whatever, to your own Google Calendar, so you can see the events that are coming up. The actual website on the next link is training.ntp-la.org without the www. So just training.ntp-la.org. This is going to be all of the Eventbrites that we have up. And these get updated every month with new trainings, new events. Don't put the www in there, just training.ntp-la.org. And then the third link, documents.ntp-la.org. That's all of our step-by-step guides, as well as the CERT forms up there. I recommend that you read through them. We will have these documents on hand at the drill, because as much as I tell people read the documents ahead of time, I know human behavior. I admit, when I'm told to read something, I'm usually reading it the day of, or the, a few minutes before, as soon as they hand it to me. So, any questions? I'll go ahead and unlock and let people unmute themselves, but please go ahead and raise your hand. And Christy and Chin, if there was anything in the chat that needs to be addressed, let me know.
Patrick?
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, I just noticed on the last slide that you were showing, the Saturday, May 28th pop-up is not in Del Rey. It's at Penmar Park in Venice.
Thank you. I was writing that last minute, literally like 10 minutes before the presentation, and I couldn't remember if it was Del Rey or Venice, but you are correct. Yes, Venice.
Yeah, we'll be there. Thank you.
Jeffrey. Jeffrey Weiss, you have your hand up? No? Okay. Good. Jeffrey, we can't hear you. Okay. You can try using the chat. Doreen.
Good evening. I attended the fire department welcome event this Saturday at my local fire department 27.
Yeah, fire service day.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and they said that they are open to starting a class there for the CERT training. I was wondering if we could get 25 people. That's the next step, right?
Yes. So they said they would actually host it at the fire station.
They said they were interested, as that the possibility was a couple of months they would be open. They're not quite open, but they're ready to be open.
Yes, and that tracks because so the CERT training, the first in-person CERT class since the beginning of the pandemic started last month. We have several more classes that have started this month. We've actually booked up for most of the year, even though they're not listed on the CERT website. And if you go to cert-la.com/Eventbrite, you can see the upcoming classes, and they'll get posted on there as they come up. They were now looking at scheduling for either late this year or early next year. So that actually does make sense. What I recommend is you reach out to your battalion coordinator and ask them, let them know that the fire station's interested in hosting, and then they can hopefully coordinate that and get that class on the books.
I think that was his name is Carl, correct?
Carl Ginsberg is your West Bureau coordinator. Yes, he's a good contact.
You.
There's also if you're in Hollywood, I believe that's Battalion 5, so that should be Jackie. Horrible with names. Why am I blanking on Jackie's name? I know Jackie's name. Kozak, thank you. Jackie Kozak. You also have Bob. Bob.
Bob A. He's
Bob A.
He's in Australia still. Yes.
I've been talking for an hour and a half, and I forgot to fill up my water before starting, so I'm a little parched. Also, my AC doesn't appear to be working very well, so I'm a little hot. And also, we have a new Battalion 5 coordinator as well. And I'm completely blanking on his name too. Chin, throw me a lifeline here. Benjamin Goldfarb, yes. So reach out to them. Their email address is lafdcertbat5, and that's bat with 2 T's, @gmail.com. Let them know that that station's interested in hosting, and ask them to reach out and get that class set up.
Oh, great. Is there a place I could find this information other than what you just shared with me? Because I wasn't able to write it fast enough.
Absolutely. It's being posted in the chat right now, but also if you just go to cert-la.com and you go to communities, it'll list all the battalion coordinators and their contact information.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
All right. We threw a lot of information out to you. We know there's probably questions. Um, and I'm putting
Hey,
everybody on the
Johnny.
spot right now, but
I think Johnny
Excuse me.
Gursky just raised his hand, like physically raised his hand.
Johnny, yes.
I would like to say something. You know, these containers, it's just a point of clarification.
Mhm.
You know, these containers that we're supposed to put that only the CERT members know. Okay, we're gonna have
The search
radio.
staging area kits, yes.
Yes, okay. My main concern is the radios are gonna be in there, but when something happens, how, if they're not gonna be charged, how, I don't know, I'll just clarify.
Yeah, so the radio should be stored without the batteries attached. We want to do quarterly drills. There will be a team in charge of maintaining that kit, and that includes periodically charging them. By doing the drills, we actually exercise the radios, and then they need to be recharged after. But that does preserve the life of the batteries.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I appreciate that. I just want to know, just for clarification, because that is to me very important. How we've got something sitting and we never know when this is
Yeah.
going to happen.
And
Thank you
also
very much.
these are community resources, especially if we're linked in with the neighborhood council and they've helped provide for these kits. It's a great opportunity as CERT members or as neighborhood responders to help out some of the community events with radio communication. It gives you a chance to practice. And a lot of times, we've done this in Battalion 2 with Loomis Day. We've put a CERT member with each of the principal members of the operations committee for Loomis Day, and they shadow them and they provide the radio communications for them. It's a great opportunity to practice. So if you have opportunities like this, it practices radio skills, also make sure that the radios are working, and then of course just need to be charged right after. Jeffrey, is your mic working now?
Hey, you can tell me, is it working?
We can hear you.
Great. Can you put the links that you put in some of the links you put in the presentation in there? Because I always mistype things. You just copy and paste them if possible. I appreciate it.
Yes, so the first one is calendar.ntp-la.org. That's a Google Calendar. As soon as we post an Eventbrite, it goes on there. And then we had training.ntp-la.org. And we have documents.ntp-la.org.
Thank you.
Welcome. Christy Chin, did you see any questions that popped up in the chat that I haven't had a chance to read through?
We've pretty much been answering them. If I missed one, let me know, raise your hand.
Well, also, if there was anything that you think that everybody should know, maybe other people weren't monitoring the chat as well. So if there was a good question that you were able to answer, might be something that everyone would like to hear.
Someone's asking about the slides. Are they available on the website? The slides you went through.
I have posted them before. Typically I post them with the YouTube video. While this is live streamed, we don't have someone actively editing these videos.
No, we don't.
So unfortunately, we're months behind on the videos.
There's also,
Sorry, go ahead.
sorry, there's also a request for having a drill on any other day but Saturday.
We have done Sunday drills. So if anyone is interested in hosting or giving us a location to host the Sunday drill, we'll definitely entertain it.
There's also a question, how can you learn about designated neighborhood staging areas?
I will tell you there are none. Aside from the two that we have in West Adams, the ones we're working on across and several neighborhood councils are actively working on them, but it's up to the community. And this is where you reach out to your CERT coordinators, Christy in the Valley, myself in Central Bureau, Chin in South Bureau, Carl in West Bureau. If you don't have good communication with your battalion coordinators, and let's work together. This is like Christy has a couple locations we're going to go visit and take a look at just to see, are they good locations? And we'll figure it out. And if they're not, we'll move on to and search for better locations if they are, or even if they are not great locations, but they're serviceable. We'll entertain it and we'll reach out to the property owner and see about getting that designated as the staging area for that area.
Okay, there's another question. I'm not sure about this one. It says, how can I get in touch with Valerie, who taught several classes at Castle Heights Elementary School? Sandy Griffiths, she put her email in here. I don't know if that was one of your instructors and one of your, I don't know that one.
Chin, do you know this Valerie?
Chin may have stepped away.
No.
Um,
I don't know who Valerie is. Certainly it's not a cert instructor, and I don't believe it's one of our team leaders either.
There's also this Patrick Carol Broder's hand is raised. I don't see it. So Carol, if you have a question.
Yeah, I actually took it down. I actually did put the question about possibly doing a course on another date.
Oh,
Due to
okay.
it being, most of the ones I see being on Saturday. I appreciate being
Okay.
open to consider.
All right. There's another question. Is there a list of the supplies and the staging cash?
It's not posted. It is when we do, we talk to neighborhood councils and request neighborhood purpose grants. We do provide that information, but I'll work on getting that actually put into the document page, just so that it is common knowledge. There's not much in there. There's a whiteboard, there's clipboards. We actually use legal size clipboards, which are for some reason more difficult to find. Pens, the forms. We have radios. There's specific radios, commercial radios that are relatively inexpensive, but low power. And then we have medical resupply. We have a jump bag in there, lots of gauze, lots of wraps. There's not, in terms of actual stuff that goes bad, we do put triple antibiotic in there, and BZK wipes. Those are really the only things that will go, they'll dry up, or the triple antibiotic will expire, but everything else is dry goods. There's very little that go bad. The amount that's in the kit to begin with is actually less than the cost of the box itself, mostly because we want to make sure that it's difficult to break into. But we don't want to have a lot of stuff, valuable stuff in these kits, because they need 24/7 access. And if somebody knows where they are and gets interested and decides to break into it, we don't want to lose a lot of valuable equipment. There is, unfortunately, one of the larger disaster caches somewhere in the city got broken into. I think they said they had to cut through 4 different locks, and there were generators in there. There was all sorts of equipment, probably like 10, 20 grand worth of equipment in there, all stolen. The purpose of these kits is to keep them cheap. The pre-inflation, meaning earlier this year when I costed everything out, these kits were $3,300, including the box. So not a whole lot, not really expensive. It does hurt if they get broken into, but it's not the end of the world. It's not 10 grand worth of equipment that just got stolen. But I'll go ahead and I'll post the Excel spreadsheet with the contents into the documents page as well.
Okay, so there's another question, which is similar to something we're having in the Sherman Oaks area. I'm the Public Safety Committee Chair for the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council, and we have the 101 and the 405 that crosses several parts in our neighborhood council area. So Valerie Keegan, who's from Hollywood Hills Neighborhood Council area, her district is also intersected by the 101. So she's asking if they should have a staging area kit on each side of the 101, which is something we've had to look at in Sherman Oaks. But Patrick, I'm typing another answer. So if you can address that.
Yeah, absolutely. When we look at a neighborhood, we look at the ideal locations and we start searching around there. So ideally, yes, we would have a staging area on either side of a major freeway that might collapse and be impossible or difficult to cross if that happens. But again, we'll take what we can get. So if we only can find one location, we'll take it, even if it's not the most ideal. But yes, hazards and resources need to be accounted for when we're assessing.
And
Deborah,
yeah.
Deborah has her hand up. Deborah?
Okay, good evening, everyone. My question is, I have 3 questions, real short. So wherever the kit is, that determines the staging area? So
Yeah.
if the kit is on the perimeter of the neighborhood, that will determine the staging area.
Yes, for the simple fact that it should be something that one person can set up. So if you have to truck a bunch of equipment, a whiteboard that's, pretty good size, and, you're not going to be able to carry too much more than the whiteboard itself, 3 blocks over to the staging area, it becomes more burdensome to set up that staging area than if it's right then there. In fact, the box itself can be used as a table. So it's very convenient. Obviously, if it's not an ideal location to operate from and you need somewhere nearby, that's a possibility, and we'll deal with that as we determine the location.
Okay, second question. Is it possible that IRTs can travel in vehicles to incident to expedite responses?
Yes, we're going to assume that there's no cell phone coverage and the roads are damaged when we plan, but do what you can with what you have. If you have a vehicle, in fact, you're probably going to want vehicles to transport people to the hospital. So if the roads are functioning and your cell phones work, use what you have.
Okay, third question. You mentioned runners, that DATs can get their information from runners. Do runners communicate with the staging area as well?
So if you don't have radios, worst case scenario, your radios don't work or you don't have them, you're going to have to send a runner back from the team to staging, and then to let staging know what's going on, and the runner's going to go back with hopefully resources. It's not a great thing to have to happen, but it is worst case scenario.
Okay, why I'm asking is because you mentioned that individuals can have their own radios, and I'm assuming they're just neighborhood people. Would they communicate with staging to relay or transmit information?
Yes. So if you don't have a radio kit in your staging area, you're just doing this on the fly, and you have your FRS radios, you're going to do what you can with what you have. So if those FRS radios work, they work. Use them.
All right, thanks.
But we want to provide the kits and the standardized radios to eliminate problems we've seen during drills.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we have a question from Annie. El Sereno has 2 fire stations. I'm assigned to 47. Just wondering about demarcations within my neighborhood and how that impacts how to select a staging area.
Like I said, there's ideal and there's what we can get. If you have a staging area, the only location you can get is going to be right smack dab between 47 and 16. I know Tom, I saw him on here earlier. He really loves separating by fire station. There will be times where you will find that artificial boundaries do not make sense. If you have a neighborhood council that's funding a staging area kit, and the ideal location or the only location you can get is on the border between one neighborhood council and another neighborhood council, that staging area is going to serve 2 neighborhood councils, because artificial boundaries don't make sense. You shouldn't limit yourself by markings on a map. Serve the area that you're set up for and that you can serve. And, Hey, if you're on the edge of LA City with Glendale or another city, you're going to be helping people in Glendale because we're all humans. There's no reason why artificial boundaries should matter.
There's two questions. One is from PJ. Are any tarps included that can be set up either for shade, privacy for the injured? And then another one that says, how do you know where our staging areas are?
So the kits are initially spec'd out with the same for every kit that we put out there. And that's a bare minimum we need to get operational. There's also a list of nice to haves, tarps, pop-up tents, tables, chairs, things that make the operation better. We're trying to get the kits out there, but there's enough room in the kit. We're getting a big enough box. It's a 4-foot box by 3.5 foot by 3.5 foot. So there's more room in the box to add things to. We'll add things to later. In terms of where your staging area is, like I said before, we have 2 staging area kits deployed in the city of Los Angeles, 2. And we're working on others, but if you have, you know of a good location, reach out to your battalion coordinator, reach out to your bureau coordinator. We don't necessarily live in the area that you do. We're not boots on the ground in your area. We need your help to figure out where is a good location. I really like houses of worship. They're close to the community. They're not always used. And so we can sometimes run drills there. And then they usually want to help during a disaster. So they make ideal partners in this. Failing that, a business. If you have a business with a parking lot or a business with an alleyway that where we can have the kit kind of out of the way, that's great. We use a business in one of our staging areas right now. Worst case scenario, someone's side yard, their walkway. It's not ideal, but sometimes you have purely residential areas and there are no ideal places for a staging area, but we do what we can with what we have. But we need your help finding these locations.
I think that's it.
All right. Christy, do you have anything to add?
No, I kind of sprinkled in my bits
Yes,
throughout the meeting. Doreen does have her hand up.
Doreen, go ahead.
Doreen, can you unmute?
We can't hear you, Doreen.
Okay, do you need to have
There you go.
a team together before you can have an emergency response in the community, a practice?
No. We approach it from all directions. So in some cases, we're asking for, we're working with the neighborhood council to get funding before we have a staging area location. Other times, we don't even have a team there. What we're doing is we're trying to work all avenues because it's difficult. If it was easy, this would already be done. But we need to build the teams. We need to find people like you who are attending these trainings. We need you to step up and say, I'm interested in being a team leader. And we'll build the team around you. We're here to be your partner. We're not here to say, okay, good, you're in charge, figure it out on your own. We're here to walk every step of the way with you, but we need you to say, hey, I'm interested in doing this and what's next. And then we'll work with you on that. Without the team leaders, none of this happens. And I know some people are they don't want the spotlight. They don't want the responsibility. But sometimes you gotta say, hey, no one else is doing this. And I'm willing to at least, put my hand up. So if you are interested in being a team leader, even if you're not CERT trained yet, reach out to us. Let us know. We're going to work with you, Christy, myself, Chin. We're going to work with you, and we'll train you as you need it, and we'll build the team around you. And then you're going to be our point of contact. We're going to let you know, hey, find us a location for a drill. Let's get the drill in your area for this month or next month or whatever. And hey, you want a CERT class? Let's get this. You have a great location for a CERT class. We'll make it happen. Gerald, we do this once a month. Well, we do these monthly. Every third Wednesday of the month, we have these trainings. They're all on our YouTube channel. Search for CERT coordinators on YouTube, and you'll find our channel, as well as all of the live streams and the edited videos that we already have.
This just came through a third person recommendation, and I don't keep up with it. I did the CERT training about 3 or 4 years ago, and I belong to, I guess, Battalion 9, but I don't keep up and I don't participate to speak of. I do other volunteer emergency communications, and I just try to keep my hand in with the CERT program because we live in kind of a remote area.
Yeah, we are definitely trying to get rebuild Battalion 9. There's been a lot of, it's a difficult area. I'm posting our YouTube channel in the chat right now, so you can catch up on the stuff. But every third Wednesday of the month we do this, and then we are doing the monthly drills. The monthly drills will move around a little bit, especially if we have people who want them on a Sunday. And then we have other stuff online as well. But happy to have you here, Gerald. All right, anything else? Chin, did you come back, or are you off gallivanting?
I think he's gallivanting.
Fine. At least he showed up. In name only. Well then, thank you, everybody. This is scheduled to go till 9, but there's no reason to keep you longer than we need to. So I appreciate everybody for coming here. If you have any questions, you can email us at LAFDcert at mycertteam.org. And that will go to Chin, Christy, myself, and Carl. And
all the participants too. There was like 90 of them.
Well, no, that email just goes to the bureau coordinators.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Pat. I was just trying to thank everybody that was participating in this. My bad. See, I need more training. We'll work on that. My apologies, all the CERT members. Thank you for participating.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Good program as always. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.